But these days, at a click of buttons on your phone, online, using email, it's really easy. You can even use an app, what we call the Easy Portal now, to create accounts like this. That's why there has been a very significant jump from the 30,000 to 130,000, and it's also figured to improve further as we onboard more listings, especially those in the telecom sector. The numbers will even hit 500,000 and 1 million, not far from now. And also with this support which Smart 240 TV has given us to conduct a lot of financial literacy, we get a lot of calls from people across the country that, oh, we saw you guys speak about shares, help us understand it more. You've done for us a very good job as the exchange and the industry as a whole. Yes. Wow,
that's beautiful. We're going to get into a little bit more about how people can do all that later on the show. But mainly we are here to look at August. Very happy new month. It's a new month. And,
same to you.
Yes. Yeah. So let's look at August in terms of our listed companies here, the 18 listed companies. How was the month generally? How was the performance of all the companies in August?
Okay. Thank you, Anthony. We shall start by looking at the numbers, especially turnover and volume.
Yes.
So for the month of August, we registered a turnover of 3.7 billion. That is the value of the shares which were traded, bought and sold. The volume was 46.2 million. If you're to compare it to August 2021, it was a little bit down, because August 2021 we had a turnover of 3.94 billion from a volume of 46.7 million. So the turnover was 4.6% down, while volume was 1.1% down. If you're to look at how we fared in the month of July, July 2022, we had a turnover of 4 billion, so August was also slightly less compared to how we fared in the month of July in terms of turnover, while volume was better. Yes. Now, a little bit about the contribution of the stocks who contributed most to that turnover. Umeme contributed 54.2% of the 3.76 billion we traded. It was followed by MTN, which contributed 25%, while Stanbic contributed 15.62%. Then if you're to look at how we fare compared to last year, we closed last year with a total turnover of 32 billion. This is August, end of August, we are already at about 30.3 billion, and we have about 4 months to go. So there are many indicators that we shall be able to register improved activity in the year 2022 relative to the year 2021.
That is beautiful. Talking about July, if you remember in July there we had lots of companies, have AGMs. We had lots of companies also issue dividends. Do you think this could have been one of the reasons why there was that increased activity more than in August?
Absolutely. A number of investors with that calculation that I will be receiving a dividend took up positions. They made allocations to ensure that they also qualify for the dividends which are going to be paid. Yeah, that partly explains why there was better activity in July compared to August. But at least the outlook, like I mentioned, the last quarters, end of Q3 and up to November, exchanges usually see a lot of build-up or trades. Yeah, with many investors trying to do what we call rebalancing. Yeah, making sure they adjust their investments in line with their policy statements. Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. Remember, talking about Umeme, what do you think drove this? Because even in the first quarter of 2022, Umeme came out on top. I think it was Umeme, Stanbic, and I don't remember the third company, but Umeme still dominates this performance. What do you think is the reason for this?
Yeah. Now, Umeme, like we discussed in the past, is in the utilities sector. A utility is like an essential. Whether the economy is doing badly or doing well, you will need electricity to support the economy, to support household items and a number of sectors. So if you're an analyst out there, you will notice that the likelihood of companies in the utilities or essential sector for you to get a decent return of them is sometimes better than other sectors. That's why there has been consistent demand and a build-up on that counter. Then also distinctively, it's one of those companies that is so attractive, especially to foreign institutional investors, perhaps because of the nature of the stock, but unlike the 17, there's usually a lot of demand for return. Maybe investors out there could be knowing something we don't, that the concessional talks could maybe begin to come out more clearly, and investors are getting bolder, because that explains, like maybe I will take you through next after this point. It's one of the counters that registered upward movement, because had there been continuous negative sentiments, there could have been positive turnover and demand and supply, but then the share price would have been going downwards, which is not the case. Yeah,
so meaning relatively people definitely determine how companies really perform, depending on the demand and supply of that stock.
Yes.
And so now let's look at the middle performance. What were some of the people that didn't do so well but didn't do so bad within this month of August?
Okay. In terms of turnover, before we look at their price movements, Bank of Baroda was fair, I should say. It contributed about 5% of the turnover. So it brought in 171 million in terms of value. Then we had Quality Chemicals contributing 0.07%, then Uganda Clay 0.26% in terms of turnover. So these are what would have passed for our mid performers, especially in terms of the turnover. But on the other hand, if we are to look at things like the index, this year, rather for the month of August, the all share index and the local share index both declined, but very marginally. The all share index opened at 1296.43 points. It closed at 1280.14 points. That was a 1.26% decline, while the local share index opened at 273.35, closed at 273.01, a drop of 0.12%. So all these are just marginal. And when you're to look at our regional peers, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, Rwanda Securities Exchange, and Dar es Salaam, it was also similar. So not much cause for worry. But Umeme, like I mentioned, is one of those counters that gave us this boost. It brought in at least 5.26% upwards, while majority of the others shed their share prices. Maybe for our viewers out there, I know it's sometimes a complicated language, but if you want to invest in a market, in a stock, for instance, you're thinking about buying Safaricom, buying Tanzania breweries, many times we encourage you to have an outlook, an indication of how the economy is performing, and many times you need to start at the indices, just like you fall sick and the doctor puts a thermometer under your armpits without injecting you first. So the indices are like thermometers for the economies. They will tell you whether economies are doing well or doing badly. When there are declines, it means that on average most companies trading in that economy maybe they had poor profits, bad results, and their share prices declined. While if it's upward, the opposite is true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, if you don't want to have a look at the entire market, you just look at the stock, the indices.
Yes.
And in Uganda, we have two indices. Maybe you can also separate them. What's the difference between the all share index and the local company index?
Okay. The all share index is the index which tracks all the listed companies at the exchange. So in Uganda, we have 18. The US All Share Index tracks the movement of all the 18. If it moves up relative to yesterday, it simply implies that on average, all the 18 companies had an upward movement. If it's downwards, on the other hand, it implies that on average, most of them shed their share prices. The second is the local share index, which tracks only the local companies. Now we have about 10 of them and 8 cross-listed. So the 18 are factored in the all share with the cross-listed, but the local will focus on those which are primarily listed in Uganda. So it will give you their average movement, yes, compared to a time frame. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still talking to Mr. Andrew Mwima, trading manager from the Uganda Securities Exchange. We are analyzing the month of August, which we just concluded. How were the stock performances, which were the top movers, who are the top participants, and so on and so forth. So stay tuned. We are remaining with Mr. Andrew for the next 30 minutes. We'll be right back.
Smart 24, driving business.
Vimba ne MTN Kabode Super esimu ya sereza nga bw'ogisasulira mpola mpola kuba amasimu kyusa zi status za WhatsApp laba bu video ku YouTube oba kozesa Google okumanya buli ekiri wansi w'enjuba ku GB bbiri tukuweza buli mwezi okumala emyezi 7 sasulako emitwalo 99 zokka ezisigadde osasula mpola mpola kati okola ki leero genda ku dduuka lya MTN erikuli okumpi weefunire MTN Kabode Super mangu